I'm Dr. Sherry, your onboard storyteller, sitting at home, social distancing, writing ever more stories to share with you when we're back on ship, at sail, at sea. And I was delighted to be asked by Oceana to share as part of the O Life series some favorite ports, places that I can't wait to share with you when we're back and we embark on the itineraries that are to come. One of my favorite ports is the city of Buenos Aires. There are so many neighborhoods. There are 48 neighborhoods in Buenos Aires, and they are famous for their individuality. Buenos Aires is a very urban place where people love to walk the streets and check out the used bookstores and talk to each other. Let me share with you just a few of the neighborhoods of Buenos Aires. The first, and we must start at the center of the historic city, and that is the Plaza de Mayo, which extends all the way up the corridor to the Congress. So from the president's home, Casa Rosas, which has been the Red House since 1873, all the way up to the Congress building, which will look a lot like the US Congress. This is the plaza where Eva Perón met to address the adoring thousands. It's also the plaza in the mid-70s of the Mother's March, where the mothers paraded around the center, beating the bottoms of pots and pans, crying out for the disappeared. Buenos Aires today remembers the disappeared in a special park dedicated to these people of a time in a sad piece of history in Buenos Aires, in all of Argentina. But before we leave this neighborhood, I want you to look at the Cabildo, which was the town hall, and then a prison, and now a craft market, and of course the cathedral. Go inside the cathedral, it's quite lovely, but look down at the floor and you'll see a compass. This was point zero for the Spanish in laying out the street design. As we continue down the corridor, we'll also pass El Atueño. It was a theater, now a bookstore. And so when you walk in, it still has the galleries of the theater. This is where locals love to come and shop for used books. So next we'll go where people came to Buenos Aires in the 19th century, the area that became quite dense, San Telmo, the new area. Today, it's a place where people go to learn the tango. But at the time, these were smaller, less elaborate buildings, but still colorful. And today they're decorated with comic book characters who are looking about and sort of enjoying just the fun of being in the San Telmo neighborhood, a place of antique stores and little shops. And then we're going to go to one of my favorite places, La Boca. This is such a colorful part of the city in its own. The corrugated buildings that were meant to be temporary have lasted forever. And the papier-mâché residents of the town reach out to invite you in, to greet you, to share the humor. More recently, the neighborhood has expanded to add more color in street art. This is La Boca. And then we're going from the first port in La Boca to the new port. Puerto Madero has been redeveloped into a modern section with new streets and high-rise buildings and fabulous art galleries and cafes. And because this area has a new street design, a committee came together to decide that the streets would be named for women in Argentine history. I have a whole story for you to share when we're back on ship of the women of Puerto Madero. And we reach the port by the bridge done by Calatrava. He calls it the Bridge of a Woman. Now let's go to another neighborhood in Buenos Aires, and this is Retiro and also Recoleta. Retiro, where people live well, and the Recoleta, the cemetery where people die well. This is where Eva Perón is buried. Juan Perón is further away in another cemetery. But this is the lovely section with elegant townhouses and wonderful shopping and beautiful hotels. Some of the hotels have recently been remodeled. And we walk down a narrow street, Florida, and we come out to the Galleria, which is an upscale shopping district. And we'll pass by the Navy, the old Navy club with these opulent, beautiful doors. Before we leave the center of Retiro, we'll see it's a park, a beautiful green park. On a lovely sunny day, people will be out sunbathing. And if you really are keen in your view of the park, you'll see that it's a circular park. It was, in fact, a bull ring. But in the Constitution of Argentina, there are animal rights and no more bullfights. So this that was a bull ring is now a beautiful park dedicated to San Martin, the liberator of Argentina. And you'll see statues to San Martin, and his home is off to the side, and a lovely little statue of San Martin and the children. So a very beautiful section in the center of Buenos Aires. And we can leave this now and go to El Norte, the northern section. It was farmland, and now it's a park. It's dedicated to the Sicilian man who owned all this farmland, Palermo. And in this area, in the midst of density, high-rise apartment buildings where regular folks live, is this beautiful open space that they can take advantage of. Beautiful ponds and a rose garden and lovely walkways that tell the history of Argentina through the poets. So it's roses and poets in the center of Palermo, the garden district in the center of Buenos Aires. And finally, I want to take you to Corriento, or El Abasto, as the locals call this section. And this is where the locals go shopping. You'll see the Mercado, you'll see this real standout Art Deco market where people go for their groceries. And it's next to another little area of restaurants and tango bars, and you'll know them by the statues on the street playing the accordion or singing out. This was the haunt of Carlos Gardel. In the 1930s, late 1920s, early 1930s, Carlos Gardel was a famous singer in Argentina, known throughout Buenos Aires. He loved to frequent the clubs and entertain the ladies, and he died in 1935 in a plane crash. And when he did, 30,000 Buenos Aires filled the streets. Some say there were more people to mourn for Carlos Gardel than for Eva Perón. And they followed his casket all the way to Chacarita Cemetery, which is where he was buried. Very few visitors go to Chacarita Cemetery, but if you do, you'll see the statue of this much-loved Carlos Gardel. He was quite the cigarette smoker, and so you'll see a fresh cigarette, because instead of laying flowers on his grave, people come by to make sure that he always has a fresh cigarette. Before I leave this area, I want to share with you my favorite single building in the entire city, and that is the Waterworks office. Something as mundane as the Waterworks is in this beautiful French mansard classical building. Everything in Buenos Aires was designed to be beautiful, to invite you in. And the buildings share their history. So many ports, so many stories. And until we meet on ship, be well.